The expectation seemed simple. A strong performance, a winning start, 3 points. That was all most people expected from the Netherlands. Because when World Cup conversations begin, the Dutch are usually mentioned among the dangerous teams, the teams capable of going deep, the teams capable of challenging anyone. And when they took the field against Japan, many expected the opening chapter of exactly that kind of tournament. But World Cups have a habit of creating very different stories. Stories that don't follow expectations, stories that refuse to follow logic. Because when the final whistle arrived, nobody was talking about a Dutch victory. Nobody was talking about control. Nobody was talking about dominance. They were talking about something else. They were talking about a team that simply refused to disappear. A team that kept coming back, again and again. Which raises a question that may have changed the way the rest of the tournament views Japan. How many times can a team fall behind before they stop believing? And what happens when they never stop believing at all? Long before the first whistle, this match already carried a different kind of pressure. The Netherlands arrived with expectations. Big expectations. Because tournaments always seem to create space for Dutch dreams. Every generation produces talented players. Every tournament begins with possibility. And once again, many people believed this team could become one of the most dangerous sides in the competition. The spotlight naturally followed them. The predictions favored them. And most of the conversation before kickoff centered around what the Netherlands might achieve. Japan arrived carrying a different reputation. Not a lack of talent, not a lack of quality, but a reputation built on discipline, organization, persistence. The ability to stay alive in matches that appear to be slipping away. Still, few people expected this match to become one of the most fascinating stories of the opening round. As kickoff approached, the atmosphere continued building. Millions were watching. Millions were forming opinions. And like so many World Cup matches, the assumptions felt straightforward. The Netherlands had the bigger expectations. Japan had the bigger challenge. But football rarely follows expectations for very long. And within minutes, the match began moving toward a story that neither side could fully control. But then the ball started rolling, and Japan immediately showed that they had not come to simply survive. A quick move, a sharp transition, a moment that forced the Netherlands to react. For a few seconds, the warning signs appeared. Not a goal, not a breakthrough, just a signal. Japan looked comfortable. Comfortable without the spotlight, comfortable without the expectations. The Netherlands continued seeing more of the ball. The Netherlands continued looking dangerous. But something about the match already felt different, and Japan looked perfectly willing to turn patience into opportunity. And only minutes later, the first breakthrough finally arrived. The Netherlands increased the pressure. They pushed forward, they found space, and eventually, they found the moment they were looking for. A dangerous attack, a precise finish. The ball crossed the line. The Dutch supporters erupted. The stadium reacted instantly, and just like that, the Netherlands had the start they wanted. But the goal itself wasn't the most important part. It was what happened afterward, because Japan suddenly found themselves facing a familiar challenge. They were behind, they were chasing, and they were now playing against a team filled with confidence. At 1-0, there was still plenty of time. One attack could change everything. One opportunity could reset the match. One moment could completely alter the atmosphere. But the Netherlands had gained exactly what they wanted. The lead, the momentum, and what looked like complete control. But Japan didn't disappear. They didn't panic. They didn't abandon their plan. And that may have been the most important development of the entire match. Because many teams begin changing when they fall behind on football's biggest stage. Many teams begin forcing passes, forcing attacks, forcing moments that simply aren't there. Japan did the opposite. They stayed patient. They stayed organized, they stayed disciplined, and slowly the momentum started changing. The Netherlands still looked dangerous. The Netherlands still looked capable of controlling the match. But Japan continued finding small openings, small opportunities, small moments of belief. And eventually, one of those moments became something much bigger. A quick attack, a dangerous opening, a finish that completely changed the atmosphere. The ball found the net, 1-1. The Japanese supporters erupted. The Dutch supporters suddenly grew quieter. And just like that, the match had been reset. But the story wasn't finished, because the Netherlands responded. They pushed forward again. They attacked again. And eventually, they found another breakthrough. Another goal. Another lead. 2-1. The Dutch celebrations returned. The pressure shifted back toward Japan, and for a moment, it felt like the story was returning to its original path. The Netherlands had regained control. The Netherlands had regained the advantage, and Japan were once again chasing the match. But that's when the psychological battle truly began, because Japan had already proven something. They had already shown they could come back once, and the longer the match continued, the more one question started growing. What if they could do it again? But the biggest moment of the night was still waiting to arrive, because World Cups have a habit of revealing character when pressure reaches its highest point, and for Japan, that moment was approaching. As the second half continued, the Netherlands tried to protect their advantage, not by defending deep, not by stopping their attacks, but by controlling the rhythm of the game. The plan made sense. They had the lead, they had the momentum, and they were only minutes away from a winning start. But Japan refused to go away. They continued pressing, they continued believing, they continued searching for one more opportunity. Then came the moment that changed everything. A quick move, a dangerous opening, a split second of hesitation, and suddenly the ball was heading toward goal. The finish was clean, the net moved, the Japanese supporters exploded. 2-2. The stadium reacted in disbelief, and somewhere inside that moment, the conversation surrounding the match began changing. People were no longer asking whether Japan could stay competitive. They were asking something much bigger. How many times can a team respond when the pressure keeps returning? Because this no longer felt like a fortunate equalizer. This felt like resilience. A statement built on belief. A statement built on persistence. A statement delivered on football's biggest stage. But the final whistle was still waiting to arrive. At that point, the result felt completely open. The Netherlands still searched for a winner. Japan still believed another moment could arrive. But as the final minutes disappeared, something became increasingly clear. This match was no longer about who had led. It was about who had responded. Because the Netherlands had taken the lead twice. And both times, Japan found an answer. That may have been the most important story of the entire night, because World Cups are not only about quality. They are not only about talent. They are not only about tactics. They are about resilience. The ability to absorb pressure. The ability to recover from setbacks. The ability to keep believing when the match appears to be slipping away. And Japan demonstrated all three. Every time the Netherlands gained momentum, Japan found a response. Every time the pressure increased, Japan remained calm. Every time doubt threatened to enter the match, Japan refused to let it stay. Which is why this result felt bigger than a draw. This wasn't simply Japan collecting 1 point. This was Japan showing the rest of the tournament exactly who they are. A team that refuses to panic. A team that refuses to surrender. A team that remains dangerous even when circumstances turn against them. But there is another side to this story. The Netherlands will leave with mixed emotions. There were positive moments. There were dangerous attacks. There were goals. And yet there will also be questions, because leading twice usually leads to victory, especially on football's biggest stage. Instead, they watched 2 advantages disappear. And that creates a different conversation moving forward. Not about quality, not about talent, but about control. Because controlling a match and finishing a match are not always the same thing. Which raises an even bigger question. Did Japan earn a point? Or did the Netherlands allow 2 points to escape? Because the answer to that question may shape the rest of Group F. Which raises the biggest question of all. Was this simply a hard-earned draw for Japan? Or was it the first sign of something much bigger? Maybe that's why World Cup matches feel different. Because they are never just 90 minutes of football. They create confidence. They create doubt. And sometimes, they completely change the way a team is viewed. On this night, the Netherlands arrived carrying expectations. The expectation to win. The expectation to control. The expectation to begin their tournament with 3 points. And twice, it looked like they were about to do exactly that. But Japan kept coming back. Again. And again. And by the time the final whistle arrived, the conversation had completely changed. Because World Cups are ruthless. One great performance guarantees nothing. One disappointing result guarantees nothing. The next challenge is already waiting. The next pressure is already building. And the next test may be even more difficult. For now, one thing is clear. Japan didn't leave this match with a victory. but they may have left with something just as valuable: belief. But what do you think? Did Japan just prove they are one of the most dangerous teams in Group F? Or should the Netherlands still be considered the favorites moving forward? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy cinematic football stories like this one, be sure to subscribe to Final Whistle and join us for every twist, every shock, and every unforgettable moment of World Cup 2026. Because while Japan celebrate a comeback and the Netherlands search for answers, the tournament is already moving forward. And trust me, this story is only getting started.